Hi everyone, welcome back to the Brick and Mortar podcast by BCI. I'm your host, Shanice. In this episode, we explore the essential skills needed to succeed in commercial real estate leasing with our special guest, Sandi Rogacki, a seasoned CRE Leasing Associate with Woolbright Developments. Sandi will share insider tips and advice for those looking to excel in the CRE leasing space. So, let's get started. Hi, Sandi. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, it's great to be here. Thanks.
Can you tell us about your journey into commercial real estate and how you ended up specializing in retail leasing?
Sure. So I think just like a lot of people who are probably listening to this, they probably kind of fell into retail commercial real estate, which is a subcomponent of commercial real estate. So in my position, I lease shopping center space on all of our Woolbright owned assets. So your chiropractor, your nail salon, I fill up everything around our Publix or our Aldi. And the way I kind of got into that is really, I started out pre-law at UCF and thought for sure I was going to be a real estate attorney. Worked for this amazing guy, Stuart Kapp, who's based out of Boca, works for REITs, does great real estate law, owns his own practice now called Kapp Morrison. And when I knew that I didn't want to go into law, I started looking around what else was available. And I was watching all these brokers make great money and go to fancy dinners. And I thought, I can do something like that. And so Stuart kind of helped me. And another guy, Mike Moberman, who is also already working at Woolbright, said, you'd be a great fit. And he opened the door. So sometimes it's not really what you know, it's who you know. And that's kind of the case in commercial real estate. How I got in.
Nice. So you've been a leader in CRE and you're the 2024 chairperson of ICSC Florida. What excites you the most about that role?
So I will say this, you're never a leader until you are a leader, right? So everybody, if you're just getting into the industry, you should just start making those steps, right? So what does that look like? Start volunteering at places, start hanging out with the people that you want to be like, and start putting in the work, right? So just being around like-minded and the folks that were already volunteering high up, at ICSC and other places where I wanted to be, I kind of just fell into that, so to speak. It was a natural progression and a next step. I've always had a heart for mentoring and bringing up the next generation. So as I was able to elevate, I wanted to take those opportunities just so I could create a position for the next generation coming up. When I got into this industry, there wasn't a lot of Black and brown people. There were not a lot of women. There was just not a ton of diversity. And so I looked at being a leader as an opportunity to be able to make the change that I thought needed to happen in our business. And really, that was one of the reasons. I'll tell you also, as I mentioned, it's not so much what you know, it's who you know. And being on these boards and being on this platform, it puts you in the room with the who you need to know, right? So in my business, I need to know all the national brands. I need to know the real estate directors. And what better way to do that than to lead one of the biggest conferences that ICSC has, and that is the Florida show. So I was really blessed to be able to be the chairperson for 2024, and I really hope that that show is a blessing to so many other people that they're able to make connections there. That's what we kind of set it up for.
Yeah. You mentioned putting in the work, and prospecting can be a grind. So what do you do to stay motivated and consistent in your approach?
Yeah, so prospecting for sure is a grind. I would love to tell you that I invented all of the 5 different ways or 6 different ways of prospecting. But of course, I've just learned them along the way, just as your listeners are listening today, they're hoping to get a little tidbit of information that somebody maybe hasn't shared with them yet. And most of our industry is kind of a fake it till you make it industry. And so you have to do things like this, listen to podcasts and rely on things. But, you know, to answer your question, prospecting is a grind, but it's not if you set up a plan, sort of like a checklist, if you will, or a routine, and you stick to your routine. So you know that when you first get a shopping center and you're going to lease that shopping center, you do a tenant mix analysis and you check off everything that's not in your shopping center and you figure out what you need. And then you figure out, just based on experience of being in the industry and what has worked for other people and talking to your colleagues, okay, I know the best way to get, you know, a chiropractor is maybe I can show up and do canvassing at a chiropractic convention, which is unconventional. I could cold call a bunch of chiropractors. I could canvas, targeted canvassing for them. So to answer your question, it is such a grind, but when you finally get that deal done, it doesn't feel like a grind at all. And I will tell you this, if you're not following Hugh Chen or Beth Azor online, these are people who have really set the standard and they will give you a play-by-play. But just like anything, like if I was going to go out and try to become a golfer and I hit a golf ball and, you know, I could just give up and go, oh, I'm terrible at this. I'm not going to do it. You know, I'm not going to be able to hit a golf ball. But if I just go out consistently and do what it takes and just keep trying, then eventually you're going to see results. So that's how it is for prospecting. You know, whatever you're good at, whatever you like to do, if you hate cold calling, then don't do cold calling, just do canvassing, you know, and get your own plan.
How has social media changed the landscape of prospecting and retail leasing?
Yeah, so I remember, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago doing an ICSC event where we had a panel and I was the moderator and we had some folks on the panel that wanted to talk about, you know, old school canvassing and old school cold calling. And then there was a couple of newbies that said, that's not the way anymore. It's way more time efficient to use social media and to use email and just to, you know, blast out as many people as you can. And I think both schools of thought are true. But social media has really kind of changed the landscape because you're able to identify the use, you know, without getting in your car, without wasting a lot of time, and you can hit way more prospects in a day than you can. But there's still so much value to that face-to-face. I will tell you, like with social media canvassing, I think that business owners appreciate it in a sense. Like if you're a gym owner and you're in the middle of teaching your class, like you don't feel like having me walk in and say, oh, hi, I have a shopping center down the street and I wanted to know if you might be interested in expanding or relocating, versus a DM where I'm on Instagram going, hey, your classes look awesome. You would be the most amazing fit for my shopping center. And then they're listening on their own time, you know? And so if I get no responses and I really, really want them, yeah, I'm going to hop in the car and do the old traditional canvassing. But I think the social media canvassing has saved us a lot of time and energy and gotten to know the no faster, you know, the N-O, not the K-N-O-W, faster, which is what you want. You want that no quick so that you can move on to the next one, pivot, you know. So I like social media canvassing, but we do it all.
Are there any specific platforms or techniques that have worked well for you?
Yeah, so I mean, do I really want to share all the secret sauce? But look, John Crossman will tell you, you can share all the secret sauce in the world, and 9 times out of 10, people won't even do it. So I'm happy to share it. I will tell you that I use different platforms for different genres, right? So like we talked about fitness, I'm using Instagram for that. If I need a dentist or anybody medical, I'm going on LinkedIn. And I'm going to do it at 6 p.m. because I know that if I message them at 2 or 3 in the afternoon and they're with a patient, they might see the push notification to their phone that they got a LinkedIn message, but they're certainly not going to respond to it at that hour. So if I message them at 6 p.m., they might say, oh, actually, I am looking for space. And, you know, let me just respond to this. You know, it's a silly inquiry, but it's things that have worked for me over time. I talk about even writing reviews, right? We were talking about that earlier. Like if you write a review for somebody, and you say, hey, I was just in your restaurant and I had the best split pea soup. And nobody has had split pea soup in all of Broward County the way you do. And you get a dialogue going, just by messaging them later and saying, hey, I don't know if you saw my review that I wrote for you, but I've been thinking more about it. And I would just love to offer you an opportunity in my shopping center. And there's nobody selling split pea soup for 10 miles. You would kill it here. And you can transition that into another form of prospecting. But you're giving them something, because a lot of times if you give somebody something, then you will also get. And even if you don't get, you just write these reviews and help small businesses. What a great thing you're doing anyway, right? So it takes no time at all to write a Yelp review, and it's really beneficial.
That's great advice. Wow. So cold calling has been around for such a long time, but it's so intimidating for a lot of people, me including. What's your advice for overcoming that fear of cold calling and making it more effective?
Look, so I think cold calling is very intimidating until it's not. Once you've done it, like if you force yourself to do something 100 times, like after that, you're like, okay, it's fine. But I will say there are some people who are extremely introverted and quiet, and they just like, it's a nightmare to pick up that phone. Okay. And to that person, I say, do a little bit of research on Beyonce and Janet Jackson. And there's other celebrities. And these celebrities will tell you that they are so have so much stage fright, and they're so scared to get up. And what they do is they channel sort of a different persona. And they become, like for Beyonce, she becomes Sasha Fierce, and she gets on the stage and she's just that person. And I think also when you switch your mindset and you say, you know what, I'm offering this person an opportunity. Like I went into that vet's office, and when I walked in, there was this giant pothole and my dog, hurt its leg. And so I'm going to call them and say, hey, like you should get out of there. Like your parking lot floods. And when you call with the sense of like not trying to sell something, but to offer them an opportunity, because 9 times out of 10, these shop owners are stuck in their business 7 days a week, all the time. Like even if they had an inkling and an idea that they might want to move, when do they have time to hop in the car and go look at projects or at spots to move? They really don't. So when you call them and you say, hey, I have a really good opportunity for you, take it or leave it, but here's what it is. And you spill it out and they go, no, I'm really not interested. Oh, that's no problem. No skin off your teeth. You're fine. But if they say, oh, thank God you called. I was just thinking, like, I need to start looking. My rent's going up here. And, then you feel like, oh, I like cold calling. I'm going to keep doing this. It's just when you start to get the reward that you're like, okay, it's not so bad anymore. So, and you're making it's not just the financial benefit, but you're also helping your community. You're helping the people that live there. You're helping this person move, and you're helping people there's always their dream to open a second or third location. And here you come offering a great opportunity. And when you think about it like that, why would you hold back that blessing? You need to be out there cold calling and canvassing.
Yeah. Do you have any personal cold calling horror stories from when you were first starting out that taught you a valuable lesson, maybe?
Yes, I do. Oh, it was terrible. A couple of us had this great idea that we would do robocalls, because why not? It must be faster and easier. And this robocalls, if you don't know, are just like the computer programs a whole bunch of phone numbers in a zip code. You pay 10 cents a call, and maybe 50% of them are going to somebody's voicemail or the wrong number or whatever. But some of them land on the right person. And I would record my voice. Hey, it's Sandi. Look, I'm looking for a dentist at Pompano Marketplace. This is the place I really did it for, was Pompano Marketplace. And we have this great opportunity. Look, I want to share this opportunity with you. Would you please call me back when you get a moment? Here's my phone number, right? So I'd leave this brief message, and knowing that it would go straight to their voicemail. Well, when you do that and you schedule all these calls, hundreds and hundreds of calls, they go all the way in through to the night. So I didn't realize that most dentists have their phones, like for emergency sake, like go straight to like their cell phone or whatever. So my phone, these calls were going to 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And the dentists were sometimes calling me back. Like I couldn't stop the robocall. Like somebody in my office initiated it and there was nothing I could do. And so all of a sudden the phone, these people are calling me back and they're so mad and they're saying, why would you call me in the middle of the night with this great opportunity? So I learned the hard way that, maybe robocalls aren't such a bad thing. Maybe people can use them, but I never use them again. And I just do the calls myself and be authentic and real. And I will say, like, when I do cold calls, I'll stand up. I will walk around. I will try to have a smile on my face. I try to have like a little mirror on my desk. So if I look at myself and I'm like, then I change my attitude and I think it comes through on the phone. So I think it's a really important tip to young people, especially starting out, or even veterans in the industry that don't think about it. Like your personality is coming through and that's the first touch. You got to make a good first impression, even if it's a cold call.
Yeah, that's such a great tip because your energy really shines through the phone, I feel like. How
For
do you
sure.
find the how do you find the balance between being persistent and not coming off as pushy when prospecting?
Yeah, it's not just with prospecting, it's with renewals and people that you're already in a deal with, and they're moving so slow and you don't want to seem so pushy and you definitely don't want to seem desperate. But at some point you're like, is this person not for real? So when I'm prospecting, if I'm, cold calling or there's so many schools of thought. Like you got to take X amount of no's from one person before it's actually really a no. But I usually I'll send a follow-up text or an email and I'll say, look, if this opportunity is not for you, that's okay too. Like I'm happy to move along. Like no skin, you're not hurting me. And I open the door for that to sort of shut the file, so to speak. And that's what we say is, hey, listen, I'm going to shut the file. I haven't heard back from you, so I'm going to move on. But on your initial touch, some people will just say it's a no. You kind of start reading people, right? Maybe it's just a no for that moment because I canvassed and I walked in and the lady was teaching a group fitness class and she's like, no, like it just wasn't the right time, right? So it's really important. The follow-ups are super important because you just never know. Like you need to stay persistent, especially if it's something that you really want, like a fancy new restaurant and you're like, no, they have to be in my shopping center. Don't stop. Let them know at some point, just like, people are when they're dating. Like if there's somebody who's kind of persistent, maybe he is kind of cute. Maybe I will listen. Like, you start going, well, what? He's so persistent. Let me just hear him out, So being persistent, I think, is key too.
Yeah. So pivoting to canvassing, when you're canvassing, what's your go-to method for making a strong first impression with potential leads?
Well, so I think there's two ways of canvassing, right? So there's the sort of the blanket canvassing, and then there's targeted canvassing. And depending on my shopping center. So if I have a really big shopping center and I have every single use in there, it doesn't really make sense to walk through a complete shopping center and talk to the nail salon, the hair salon, when I know I already have restrictions and I can't use those guys, right? So some people will say, you still should walk through them. You should still walk through the shopping center and talk to every single person because they may not be a good fit for the one that the shopping center you had in mind. But in talking to them, they may say, oh no, but I am interested in Naples. Oh, well, I do have something all the way in Naples. So let's talk about that. So when you're out canvassing, you're already there. Blanket canvassing is just blanketing the whole thing and talking to every single person. And I can tell you a quick little story about that because I did do blanket canvassing not too long ago. And I didn't need a restaurant. I actually couldn't do any more restaurants. But I stopped into a restaurant and I said to them, hey, I have my flyer and I just want to leave this here for you. I know you're super busy. I was almost like knowing it, saying no for them myself, because I didn't need them. I was like, oh, but if you are interested in expanding and relocating, look, we have 35 shopping centers and I bet you we have 5 or 6 locations where we could fit you in, and you're totally packed here. You must sell great food, and so you get a little chance to dialogue with the hostess, by the way. You're not getting the owner usually right at the front door. And she said, yeah, no, I know this owner, and he absolutely does not want to expand. He's actually thinking about retiring, but I'll keep your flyer here just in case. I said, oh, thank you so much. Okay. So I leave, I finish canvassing the shopping center because I'm doing the blanket canvassing, and it doesn't take too long to get through the whole thing. And by the end of the shopping center, somebody was calling me saying, did you leave a flyer at the restaurant? And I said, oh yeah, and I'm still here. I could come back and talk to you. And the man was like, no, I'm not the owner of that restaurant, but I am the owner of a restaurant. And he goes, and I'm so sick. I'm here like with a cold, and I stopped into this place to get some soup, and I saw your flyer sitting at the hostess stand. And he goes, and I'm interested in opening a restaurant. And that's how I ended up getting a deal done with a restaurant operator that by canvassing. It's a matter of numbers. The more people that can get your flyer or know about your project or know about what you're looking for, the better. So the more, I talked about Hugh Chen earlier. If you look at his LinkedIn, he did a recent post about how many, it's like 100 no's before you get one yes. And so every no is equal to like $78 on average if you figure out the average commission. So the more no's you can get out, the better you are, right? Because you're closer to your yes. And so just with canvassing, I think it's important to do both. But if you're really like time sensitive, you better just do your target canvassing. If you know you need a dry cleaner, just go out and drive all the dry cleaners in all the market and just find your dry cleaner. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So relationships are at the core of basically like real estate success. How do you stay connected with your past tenants, and why is that important for future business?
Yeah, look, I mean, if you do right by your tenants, they are your biggest billboard, because I still send people, prospective new tenants, to my old tenants and say, ask them how we treated you. Find out how Woolbright was, and they give great reviews, and that's great for us. And in exchange for my tenants, I write reviews. I encourage my friends to write reviews for their businesses to keep them, top of that search engine optimization and all of that stuff. I will tell you that relationships just in general are probably the best way for you to get business. But relationships with your tenants are key. I mean, most of these businesses are going to open a second, third, fourth location, and you want them to call you. So when you're doing the deal, you're always really transparent, and you're always really helpful, and you're always putting the marathon in mind, not the sprint, right? So that you hope that your business has longevity, and that you'll be able to accommodate them in other shopping centers and work with them again. So, and a lot of times when you get a new shopping center, if you just go to the adjacent, if you have a vacancy and you go to the adjacent, whatever it is, medical office, and you say, hey, I have this 1,200 square feet right next door to you. Would you like to expand? A lot of them go, yeah, I would. I've been asking the management company and nobody's gotten back, so right away when I take over a new shopping center, I go right to the neighbors and meet all of the tenants. And usually each shopping center has a mayor, like one person that's the mouth of the center. And you try to find that person right away and make friends with them, so that they're texting you and calling you and saying, I just saw somebody looking in the window of the vacancy, So they give you the little tips, or they run outside with your flyer for you. So it's really important.
You're very involved in some boards and chambers. How has this involvement helped you build your CRE network? And what advice would you give to those looking to expand their professional relationships?
Yeah, so number one advice is join as many things as you can. Is it time consuming? Sure. But what isn't? So you've got to join boards. You've got to join chambers and just network like crazy. I would say ICSC is a great platform. We also have this Florida Retail Scholarships, which I sit on the board of, is having a big event November 21st, 2024 at the at the Top Golf. Like, these are places where you can connect with other people in your industry, and you want to be able to get on texting terms. As soon as you can get to texting terms, huge benefit. Because if I have a spot for coffee, and a few weeks ago, a month ago, or even a year ago, I talked to a broker who said he was running around with a coffee user, and I'm able to text him and go, hey, you still have the coffee user? Yeah. If he says, yeah, I do. Okay, cool. When I get home, I'm going to email you. You know, it just makes it so much easier. Like, they feel like, oh, I mean, what's the saying? People do business with the people they know and like. You know, that you got to know and like. If you know and like thousands of people, it opens up your realm of possibilities tremendously. So I think it's really, really important to do networking.
Last two questions. What's one piece of advice you'd give to someone new to leasing or commercial real estate who's just starting out?
Yeah, I would say a lot of the younger people don't want to do LinkedIn. Like, they love Snapchat, TikTok, Insta, all of these things, but they don't want to really build their LinkedIn. And you really need to build your LinkedIn. And if that means hiring somebody, you know, to help you, or if you're on a budget and you're like, I can't do that, I think you need to just start connecting with as many people as you can while you're still in school and before you even start. And start sharing. Like, you can start sharing stories from BuildCentral, or, you know, you could start sharing stories from Woolbright. You could start, you know, if you don't have anything to say about the industry, just start building your profile. That's super important. And that also, by the way, builds your network, right? So you're not asking, like, if you connected with me today and it's just because you wanted to be friends, so to speak, that's cool. But if you connect with me and then right away ask me for, hey, can I asphalt some of the new shopping centers that you have? I'd be like, oh, he only connected with me because he needed something. Okay, which is still fine. LinkedIn's used for that, right? So that's okay too. But there is something to be said for if somebody connects with me and then a year later they say, hey, we've been connected for like a year and now I'm looking for an internship and could you help? I'd be like, oh, sure. You know, let me see send me your resume. You know, I would get into that. So that's for sure one thing I would say for somebody who's just kind of starting out. In addition to that, I would say figure out what all the industry tools are. Figure out where everybody's hanging out. If that is ICSC event, I mean, there's 2 or 3 things going on every month at least, right? So just be there. If you can't afford to get in, be nearby. Like, we recently had an ICSC event at a bowling alley. Like, go to that bowling alley and hang out outside, you know, and just try, you know, be thoughtful about what you're spending your time on, and also clean up your social media. A lot of these younger people, they're like doing a keg stand and then they're like, by the way, I'm looking for an internship, you know, like right. I'm like, I'm certainly not perfect. Like, I totally was in college too, but like, start to clean it up a little bit, you know?
And what trends do you see shaping the future of leasing and commercial real estate over the next few years?
Look, our CEO at Woolbright just did an amazing keynote speech, and we posted it last week on woolbright.blog. So if your listeners go over to woolbright.blog and listen to his keynote, they will find out how AI is about to transform our industry. Our company really uses, I think, every single, like, acquisitions, leasing, IT, everybody, even down to the receptionist, is using AI now, and that came straight from the top down. Like, everybody, you need to get used to using this, you know, and so we have been. I think people really need to get comfortable with that, and it does help. I can tell you, like, if I'm writing a bunch of emails to different veterinarians that I want to have in my shopping center, I will throw my email into AI. It takes 2 seconds and have it soften it up, or make this more friendly to a dog lover. And AI transforms my email into something I would never, oh, cutesy doggy, you know, I would never write like that. And it makes it, and I get so many more responses back. So I think that I see AI changing the way we work. I don't, as Dwayne Stiller will tell you, I don't think it's going to change that we need people. We absolutely need people, but I think we're going to be using way more technology in our prospecting days ahead.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Sandi. How can people reach you?
Yeah, so LinkedIn, if they would get on there and do something there. Social media, or even the Woolbright website, available. All my contact information, even down to my cell phone, is there. So I'm happy to answer questions and help, especially the next gen coming up. I love helping the next gen.